All right, let's discuss the legal implications of a contested election with Page Pate. He's a criminal defense and constitutional attorney. Morning to you, Page.
Good morning, Martin.
So you say, quote, "I am no alarmist, but I really feel that there is a hurricane approaching and we're nowhere near prepared for the damage." That is alarming. And I'm wondering, what's your biggest concern right now?
Well, Martin, I think it's clear that we have a president who is not going to accept the results of this election if he loses. I mean, he said as much. The only way we lose is if it's rigged, and I'm not going to accept the results of an unfair election. So what is happening now for the Trump administration to challenge the results of the election? Well, one, he's casting doubt on the veracity of mail-in voting. Of course, there's nothing to support that, but he's already sowing the seeds of doubt and discourse to suggest if the result changes after election night while mail-in voting is still being counted, he's going to challenge that. And the law sets very specific timelines, deadlines, for when these votes have to be counted and when electors have to report that to Congress. Remember, the American people don't elect a president. They vote for president, but the electors elect the president. And if there's any controversy about who those electors are from a particular state, we could be in serious trouble.
So there's about a 75-day period, I think it is roughly, from when the election is held to when the next president, or perhaps the one that's still here, gets sworn in again. And a lot can happen in that time, as you sort of allude to there with the Electoral College.
Right.
The Constitution sort of sets up the framework of a contested election and what happens. But it seems to presume that everybody will follow the rules. And that's the problem here. We don't necessarily know that.
That's exactly right. The Constitution does not guarantee a fair and friendly transition of power. It presupposes that that's going to happen. It sets the deadlines, it sets the procedure, but the Constitution, and in our past, the American public, we have always assumed that the president would do what's in the best interest of the country. And I think for the first time, we have a clear sign that that may not happen in this case. And if this election comes down to a couple of states, and counting of the votes is still going on after Election Day, we know that Trump is going to challenge that. We know that that's going to end up in court. And if we have a result from a Supreme Court that many people don't have confidence in, if we have a new nominee who's rushed in before the election, I see nothing but potential problems with that scenario.
All right, I'm glad you brought that up, because Democrats say that they will insist that Trump's Supreme Court nominee commit to sitting out legal challenges to election results and setting aside whether she'd actually agree to that. You know, is there a legitimate case to be made that his nominee, if she's confirmed, should recuse herself? And I ask that because the Supreme Court is supposed to interpret the Constitution, not apply their own, perhaps, political beliefs.
That's right. Well, a lot of people think that the Supreme Court did issue a political decision in 2000 in the Bush v. Gore situation, but here it would be so much worse because we probably would not be talking about a recount. We would be talking about the initial counting of the votes and seating of electors. No, there is no legal basis for an incoming Supreme Court justice to recuse herself before a case involving this election comes to the court. For political reasons, she may agree to do that, but there's nothing in the Constitution or the law that requires it. So we have heard the president say, I want to put somebody on that court so that I have a majority in the event, and I think he said it probably will end up in the Supreme Court. What a crazy thing for an incumbent president to say before the election, that the election is going to end up in the Supreme Court. There's so many balls in the air right now, the potential for a problem. It's real. It's very real.
Do you see this being worse than it was, say, in 2000?
Very different, and yes, potentially much worse. Number one, we had two candidates in that race that even though they were contesting the results and the recount in Florida, at the end of the day, Vice President Gore accepted defeat, and he conceded immediately after the court decision. Does anyone who's watching this believe that President Trump is going to concede this election at any point? I mean, he may leave office, but I never see him agreeing that an election where he lost was fair and adequate. So I don't see it happening the way it did in 2000. Again, if it's a close race, if it's a landslide, probably not a big problem. But if it comes down to a couple of states and we're still counting after Election Day, watch out.
Page Pate, thank you very much. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, Martin.